Big Z Reviews. The Fear Street Trilogy is an incredibly interesting way to make these three films on Netflix. I think all directed by Leigh Janiak and starring like a lot of the same characters. Essentially, the one movie 2, and then movie 3 kind of combines them all in certain ways. And it's an interesting idea because I could see more stuff like this where they are movies, but at the same time they're kind of like a show. Like it's like long form movies that is very interesting. And I love to see more people play with this on streaming because it gives a lot of opportunities for interesting stories to tell, and I really loved it.
Are you okay?
That was 1978. 5,937 days ago.
Shadyside, a history of horror has earned it the nickname Killer Capital USA.
What's happening to us?
So as a little backstory, I was an R.L. Stine kid. I grew up with Goosebumps, and then I did move to all the Fear Street books. And I think those are kind of what I read for pleasure. Like, also, I got into fantasy and science fiction from my dad, like, going up in the attic and finding his old sci-fi and fantasy books. And, that's how I got into that, too. That's, but a lot of the stuff I read for pleasure, the R.L. Stine books. And it's funny because I know, in middle school, they had this, reading club, or they thing, where you get... It essentially is a pretty much standard behavior modification program, where you would read a book, and different books, harder books, you got more points for. And you take you go in a computer library and take a test on it, and if you scored well, to show you actually read it, you get more points. And then we at the end, if you got enough points, we take people to Bonanza for a lunch, and it was cool. It's a fun behavior modification program. But I even lead to it though. I think they also used that for people that did well. They got into this book competition where they gave us a big list of books and you had to read many as you can, and you get together and from all different schools in the area, and you'd have these quiz teams, and I was the captain of my team. Though I was still pissed about the one thing, 15 years, 20 years, wow, no 15, something, but 15 years, but I'm still pissed, but the reason my team lost in the semifinals or something was my fault, because there's a question about this one thing where this part of this book took place, and it was a yard sale, but it was actually the actual answer was a garage sale or something like that. So I was like, but it's the same thing. I'm like, well, it was in the garage. I'm like, God damn it! But I kind of grew up you feel like you're getting more adult, and you get into the Fear Street books, and Fear Street books were actually pretty violent. There's a lot of fun stuff. I remember one thing. I remember the being boiled alive in the gym showers. There's a lot of stuff with the witch, and I think it's funny in this. I think they're kind of switched. The Fear family, they hung the good women as witches, and then the good family cursed the Fear family, and that's something like that. But the actual story in this film is nothing from the books. I don't think it's just kind of inspired by it. But it's funny to talk about. It's a little tough because but the first one is 1994, and it's this town, every once in a while, it's Shadyville and Sunnyside. In Shadyville, there are these murderers. I guess people randomly go crazy and go on a mass murdering spree, and Keanu Madeira as Dina and Olivia Scott Welch as Samantha. They're kind of girlfriends, but they kind of separated. The one moved to Sunnyside. But there's a lot of school drama there. But it's done well though for what it was. But then they kind of crash a car when they're the new boyfriend is messing with the bus, a football player for Sunnyvale, and they kind of crash, and they go and they find the bones of the Sarah Weir and bleed on them. and then now all these monsters are coming back to life, and they come in to kill her. And like there's, I think all the monsters that come back to life are really cool, and the way they have to do it, like because they can't be killed, like how they get around that is really interesting stuff. Like how like they're made by this other mass of material, so like they're immortal. Like stuff they do with that is really good. All the cast of characters are excellent. They're young actors. All of them are great. The thing that's funny is people will die. Like at a certain point, it feels like this isn't a slasher film. It feels like, oh, this whole group is gonna be safe, but then it might not be. And I was like, at first when I was like, oh, that sucks. I like those characters, but some of them they pop back up in the third one. But I think like the first one kind of sets up everything. But the best movie of the trilogy to me is the second one, and that's Fear Street Part 2, 1978. And essentially, this could just be a great movie on its own. Like, remove the framing device of telling the story and anything else. If I was rewatching stuff, I would consider rewatching 1978 by itself and not watching the rest of the trilogy. It's all great, but this one is an excellent slasher. Like, it is brutal. Like the axe murderer. I think McCabe Sly as Tommy Slater. Like, you see him, like, the final form of him in the first one. But then here, they're brutal. Like, so I think maybe some of the best axe murders I've ever seen on film. Like, they're, visceral and brutal and just slamming, and they don't take anything back. And, like, something, the only funny, like, he murders kids, too, like, little kids. But they don't show the kids. Like, that's a little step too far, showing the axe murder of kids. They'll show later, someone will come upon it and see an arm or something. But, like, and I really like I think Sadie Sink as a Ziggy Berman is great. Like, she's the main character along with Emily Rudd as her sister, Cindy Berman. And they're at this camp. And, like, there's a lot of great stuff. And it's also, they delve more into like the past and like what is causing this, and they find like the witch's mark, and they find this like underground caves and stuff, and this weird heart that's powering everything. Like, some great shit. But I think take all that stuff away, just the axe murder and stuff and the bunch of campers. This is a really great version of that. I loved it. And there's a lot of great, I really loved everything about it. And it also sets up, the third one really well. And the third one is Fear Street Part 3, 1666. And this one you kind of see the true story of what happened with Sarah Fear. And I really like what they did. It kind of shows, like, I kind of want to see more horror films in the Dark Ages. Or I guess this is in America, but like this is like colonial days. Like, it'd be interesting. I want to see more shit like this. Like, the accents, they're not great, but they're unobtrusive. They're not annoying. And there's this, like, I love that, like, you see, like, there's a lot of mirrors between the two characters from the original part 1. And there's also, they're played by those characters. I really like how they get all the characters in, they play the characters from back then. I really like what they do here. And you get to see, the truth behind everything. And then you also then get the conclusion back in 1992 in the end. So it's kind of like a two-parter. It's kind of like part 4 or 1994 part 2. But like, again, that's great too. It wraps everything up very interestingly, very fun. And I really love all of it. Like, pretty much everything I would have wanted from a movie like this, or from a trilogy of movies like this. Like, if you're a horror fan, you have to check it out. Don't be scared about being like Fear Street or being like teenage. It's not teenage. It's like hard R. Like, it's a lot more gory than most of the horror movies I've seen lately in theaters. Like, R movies, like, it's really good. Like, I give it like a 9 out of 10. There's so much here to offer, and I love to see more things like this, like multiple movies instead of a season or something. It's really interesting, and you have to check it out, especially if you're a horror fan. But thanks for watching. If you want to see more of me, you can subscribe down below. Thanks.